Hi, how are you? This is America's most outspoken artist, Lance Skirvin, and I'm deep in thought today. I'm relaxing today. I have a day off. Not really. I never take a day off. But I had a few thoughts running through my mind, a few things that I felt are very important in this day and age. These days we're very distracted by the technology that we have around us. We have cell phones, we have computers, we have iPads, we have all this gadgetry that we're so caught up in. When I'm driving my bus and I look down at the red light and look into the car next to me, the person is always, almost always on their text, doing a text on their phone all the time. You see people walking down the street, and now, granted, I'm guilty, not of driving and doing it. I used to. Shh, don't tell anybody. But I do it a lot because I have a purpose in doing it, because I blog constantly. It's not to send messages back and forth foolishly or put up on Twitter that, well, I'm going to the grocery store now. I just came out of the bathroom now. Oop, I bumped my leg on the coffee table. It's nothing like that. With me, it's a constructive thing, and it helps me to use my downtime, whether it's 3 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 10 minutes there. It all adds up. I mean, I probably have 2 hours worth of downtime that I would otherwise not be able to use if I didn't have a smartphone. So it helps me out a whole lot in my internet endeavors, and it keeps my presence there, constantly. And I get the work done of about 5 different people. Okay, that's focus for you. And you know it. But, we're so distracted, but we're not really looking at the world as it's changing. I ask a lot of questions. Why? Why are we given this technology now, all of a sudden? If you look in the last 5, 10 years, we've been given a whole crap load of technology. And that technology, to me, if you ask me, was already there. It was already there in existence, but there's a purpose for us to have it now. And I believe the powers that be have given us all this technology to use and distract us because they have an ulterior motive ultimately. If we're distracted, we can't be unified. People say, well, we can use Twitter and be unified, but they can monitor everything that we do. Okay? We're so caught up in the technology and the so-called status that it brings, and on these social networking sites, Facebook, Twitter. It's a nice thing. I know that stuff in and out, and I have to do what I do and use the internet as leverage for what I do. But I have a purpose in that. For those of you who have no purpose other than a narcissistic need just to see numbers go up, numbers tell you what it is that you need to do in certain areas that you need to focus on when you do a website or whatever. But other than that, just to say, well, I got more Facebook friends than you, or I got more Twitter hits than you, and I have that's foolishness, because that's the cyber world. What are you doing with that to affect you in real life? The people that I talk to, the people that I affect, the people I reach out to, they're real. I know their phone numbers. They can call me. That's just a tool. If you have no substance behind it, it means nothing. But back to the original question, why are we given this technology? What should we really be thinking about? We've become dependent on this technology. We've become a very lazy generation. I think, and I'm going to honestly say, and this is not an old versus young thing, but I think my generation, and you figure it out, I'm 48 years old on April 8th, but my generation, I think, was really one of the last generations to have a solid childhood, a solid sense of community. It's just so dysfunctional now, and I'm not throwing off, but I just have to be honest. We have some grown crack babies out here right now. This is not a joke anymore, okay? But I just feel that we've been given this because there are things we need to think about. What? We're dependent too much. Our food, okay? Our shelter, our heat, our education, our news, our networking. Number one, if you can't go to the supermarket, or if you can, say you go to the supermarket and there's no food, what are you going to do? Are you really self-sufficient? If the hospitals are overloaded, overcrowded, do you know how to take care of your body in case you had a mild medical emergency? I'm not suggesting going to school for so many years to specialize in something, because you'll be going to school for the next 300 years. We don't live that long. But to have a basic function, or understand the basic functions, of the human body, to know how to take care of yourself. Can you grow your own food? For all of us who live in the bigger cities, you got to understand that's an artificial situation. That's an artificial way of living, to be able to go down and get some food from the supermarket, throw it in the microwave, quick, eat out of a box, fast food, people piled up on top of people, but you don't have the resources around you to sustain you. That's artificial. And if somebody decides to pull the plug, and somebody decides to say, hey, you know what? We're going to create a food shortage, and we're going to knock out some of the population that we consider undesirable, then you're in trouble. Do you have land? How much land do you have? You might have a little yard, maybe not all of you, but can you grow enough food on your land to sustain you in case there is no food? Because you know what? If there's no food, you can have all the money in the world, but it's worth nothing when hunger starts to hit you. So you'll step over $1 million to get a plate of food. So you're not as efficient or sufficient, or both, as you think you are. So we need to focus on what it is that we need to sustain ourselves independently. We are not really independent. We're dependent on each other for different things. We're dependent on systems that we don't control. Okay? If the internet goes down and you don't or can't get on Facebook or can't get on Twitter or can't see what's happening in the world, where's your power source? Okay? Can you set it up where you can get your own solar power directly from the heavens? Store it and be able to keep your food in your refrigerator frozen. Okay? If the power goes out, and okay, you pay your bill, but if something happens as far as a catastrophe is concerned and you have food in your refrigerator, how else can you eat? We all should be eating raw foods anyway. We all should be eating raw nuts, fruits, and vegetables out of the ground. Case closed. Nothing else. Okay? If we don't have access to those things, okay, how long can you live? Your job. Do you create your own income? Do you have something that you are working on and building on to make an income for yourself independently with you dealing with the world directly? Your own brand. Not just the narcissistic endeavors, but what concrete do you have to offer to the world that they will pay you for? Okay? You don't have to go downtown. The days of going downtown to get a job are over. Well, I'm going to go on downtown and fill out an application. Look, you used to be able to go years ago before all the jobs and manufacturing in this country disappeared, okay, and went overseas. Used to be able where you can go down, one person, usually the father, the husband, the man of the house, he has a family, he can go downtown, and this is many, many decades ago. He can go downtown, fill out a job application, stay on that job for 20, 25 years, get a retirement, and on that one income, he could sustain the whole family. He could take care of all of the family's needs. The rent/mortgage, the food, the clothing, the medical, his car, a car for his wife, spending money, allowance money, on some old father knows best type stuff, which in actuality, in America, it was never really like that, okay, for everybody. They have these projections on these sitcoms and family sitcoms of the perfect family, and you sit here watching it feeling jacked up because your family wasn't like that. That's what it was designed to do. It was never like that. Okay? But with all of this technology around us and technological distractions and so-called advances that have robbed us of our ability to be self-sufficient, have we gotten any better? No, we're worse off because we don't know how to take care of ourselves. We're dependent on this stuff. And I think that's a very, very bad thing, because if you look around, we're made to live off of the ground, the soil. We go back to the soil. We came out of the soil. Everything that we want is in the soil, yet we don't have access to it. Why is it that this land is divvied up and we have to pay somebody to own the land? Well, you say, well, that's just the way it is. And no, somebody has gotten between the role of God dealing with us directly and stepped in the middle of that, and we have to pay them. Why can't we just go out in the wild somewhere, go out in the country somewhere and live a peaceful existence off of the land? You and God, you get up, you work hard on the land all day, get your food together, build your shelters, cut your firewood, because I'm going to be very big into that. I know I'm in Florida. I know I'm in Orlando, Florida now. But in the wintertime, for a couple of weeks, it can get extremely cold to the point where when you're on the phone and you're talking to somebody like me, I know a lot of folks in New York because that's where I'm from, and they say, man, you know, it's 32 degrees up here, but I heard it's 29 in Florida. Well, it can get real cold, and the homes down here are not made for that. Luckily, this home is kind of airtight. It's a modern home, but there are many people, and even here, you don't have a heat source, you know, it's not happening. The heat works, but you know what? I'm not paying for it. There's too much wood, and there's a fireplace over there that this winter coming in, I make a promise, I am not going to put that heat on one time. My heat will be free. I'm working on solar energy to power the things in the home. Of course, it's not as powerful as putting something in, plugging something in, but you can have the batteries to store stuff up. I'm researching all of this stuff real and live. I'd like to get some property or some land up in the Panhandle, Florida Panhandle, where there are not too many people. I'm not a doomsayer. I'm not a person who's going to predict disaster, but it's insurance as far as I'm concerned, because people will turn around on you. And how do you defend yourself? Yes, I do believe you have the right to bear arms and defend yourself, but I don't think people who are not in law enforcement really should have it. But if you're way out in the country somewhere where you can't just pick up the phone and say, hey, cops, somebody's breaking in my house, it's going to take, the nearest person is 50 miles away, you need to have something. So there need to be rules for that. But, you know, I would like to have some land way out so that if a catastrophe happens, there is no Chinese food store, no pizza joint, or no fast food or whatever, which I don't get down with those things anyway. But if you didn't have access to that, the people are going to start looking at who has. And guess what? If you've been like a squirrel who's saving up all your nuts all summer long, and the wintertime comes, and you have what you're supposed to have, and they haven't been doing what they're supposed to be doing, guess what? They're going to take you out. Okay, and they're going to justify it. Listen, my babies need to eat, and you got food in there, and listen, I got this gun here. I will kill you. You know, that's what will happen. Mobs, gangs of people. Look what happened during the blackout in New York City in 1977. I was there. I was right there when it happened, and I saw how within minutes, mobs of people, and it wasn't out of necessity, but human nature. So what happens in necessity? What will we turn into? What will we become? We're being set up for something, and all this technology is only there to make us weak. And we need to know how to communicate, network, barter with each other, because the dollar, to me, like I said, soon, it's already weak. It's not even the standard no more. New York, what am I got to call somebody in New York, I think. But the United States currency is not anything anymore, and we're being set up. So we need to think proactively, get off of Facebook all the time, unless we're doing it to communicate something worthwhile, share information while we have it, okay? Because if you take the technology away, how can you call somebody and speak to them in New York City if you have no phone and it doesn't work? Whether it's a landline, whether it's your cell phone, email, they take all that away. You only have who's really around you, okay? So think about those different things as your time goes by, and try to wean yourself off dependency on this technology. I use it. You see me making these videos. You see me all the time. But you know what? I'm ready not to have it, because I can remember back in the day when we had none of this at all. You would get on the phone. Oh, sorry. You would leave your house. You would tell whoever was home, listen, I'm going to be here. I'm going to be, you know, this particular place. I will call you from outside. You would either use the person's phone that you were visiting, or you'd go out to the payphone and call. If they were home, they couldn't call you unless they knew where you were. And if they called, well, so-and-so just left a few minutes ago. Oh, God, I hope he calls me because I have a little disaster going on over here. You go home. You just don't know. So we have communication, and there are advances, but understand, use it knowing that it's not always going to be there. And if it is, fine. But always have a plan B so you're not caught out there when the technology is removed. Thanks for watching this video. Think about the things. I'd love to hear your comments. Again, this is America's most outspoken artist, Lance Skirvin, and I want to hear what you have to say. Thank you.